Hi, my name's Sonjia and this is my channel, See It Then, See It Now. This is part 2 of a 3-part series where I show you how I decoupage. In this video I'll be using rice paper on glass. If you missed the last video I will leave a link in the description box below. Let's see how the rice paper compares to the printer paper used in the first video. Like I've already mentioned, I'm decoupaging with rice paper on glass, and I have been asked the question, so just to clarify, no, this is not the kind of rice paper that you can eat. If you're wanting recipes, you're in the wrong place. This is a different type of rice paper. As with the box in part 1 of these videos, I got this candle holder from Poundland. The first thing I did after giving it a clean was paint it with Johnstone's Chalky white furniture paint in the colour Cushion White. You can decoupage onto the glass without painting it first, but depending on what kind of paper you're using, the pattern will show up much better if the item you are decoupaging is a pale colour. If you saw my video of the tray items, I decoupaged some letters and I painted them in a pale green and a white. The pattern showed up great on those. Something I have found to work really well is if you paint your piece the same colour as the background on your paper. Regardless of what type of paper you're using, you do get a better blended look if you tear the paper rather than cutting it with scissors, which leaves a straight edge. I used water on a paintbrush to draw around the design, and then I tore the paper to get my first piece. To be honest, I don't think I needed the water. It's just as easy to tear without the water. This brings us to our first pro. Rice paper is very easy to work with. It doesn't crease or tear by mistake, and it's very durable. If you're new to decoupage, rice paper would be a good option. It's one of the most popular papers for decoupaging. When putting on the first piece, it's best to be mindful of where you want the front to be. There was a crease in the candle holder, and as that would show once the paper was on, I made that the back. I placed Mod Podge in the centre of the area where my paper was going, and I put a piece of plastic bag over the design and then ran my fingers over the bag to smooth the paper into the ridges on the candle holder and remove any bubbles. It's fine to leave a overhang at the bottom of the candle holder. Once the paper is dry, you can sand the excess off and it'll leave a clean edge. That is beautiful. That's really pretty. Where I had these deep grooves in the holder, I used a paintbrush just to gently push the paper into them, making sure not to tear the paper. You wouldn't be able to do this with some papers as they would just tear, but the rice paper is more durable. So is it a pro that the paper can be pushed into the grooves without tearing, or is it a con it doesn't just sink into the grooves like a napkin would? I think it's a pro. Once the paper was in place, I repeated the process, working my way outwards towards the edges. By doing it this way, it helps to keep the paper It helps to keep the paper positioned correctly and prevents any bubbles getting trapped, and also helps to avoid creases. Rice paper is better than some papers, but your fingers can still stick to the wet paper and lift it back up off the surface. The plastic bag stops this from happening. Using a sponge to dab the paper into place also works. When I started decoupaging, I was all for the sponge. I didn't really get on with using the plastic, but I tend to use a bit of both now, just when I'm applying the paper. So try both, see which one you like, see which one works for you. I've got all that there, and this will just fit in there nicely. Obviously I'd put a bit in there, but that's all I do. Just look at where I can fit bits in so it matches up well. As I'm adding each piece, I'm looking at the colours and the patterns in the paper, and I'm just trying to match them up. I prefer to do this rather than sticking the pieces on any which way, so that it doesn't end up looking like patches of paper all over the piece. It takes longer to match it all up, but it helps to add all the joins, and in my opinion makes the extra time worthwhile. Time for another pro. There are some really beautiful pretty patterns to choose from with such unique options, that I think some of the options can bring a really vintage feel to a project. A con to using rice paper is that it's more expensive than a lot of other papers you can use. It's just a case of continuing to add little bits. Like I say, if you're doing it on a really straight even piece, you don't have to tear it up so much, but because it's going all up and down and into all the lumps and bumps, you have to keep tearing it, so you'd end up with loads of jagged bits, like this, but bigger if you were to use one big piece. Now, all I'm doing what I tend to do when I'm patching up is I try to go with similar colours. So here we've got lots of this like browny colour, so we could patch that up with just some brown bit, but at this side we've got a lot of green, so we kind of need to just get a bit of green in there, but then maybe pull away so that we're going into the brown. So maybe that bit there, so that it then goes into the more browny tones. So there is what I'm thinking. We've got quite a lot of the beige there. I think we need to just put a bit of flower in there, but we can put some beige down here. Oh, that works well there. If you look there, that bit there and that bit there is the same colour. So I think that can go in there. Although, maybe not, because that'll leave me with some green here that I need to patch in at the bottom. So, let's just get a bit of that. I continued to follow the same steps until the whole piece was covered. Once all the paper was dry, I sealed it with a coat of gloss Mod Podge, and that was the decoupage complete. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I often add that little extra touch, and I decided to add roses to the front. I made the roses using desk clay, and once they were dry I painted them blue and added touches of silver gilding wax. These were a practice run for a larger clay flower project that will be coming up soon, so if you want to see how they were made, you know what you need to do so you don't miss out. Once the roses were dry, I hot glued them onto the front, and that was the candle holder complete. So let's have a reminder and see it then. And let's see it now. I'm really pleased with how this turned out, but let me know what you think in the comments. In part 3 I will compare each option, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. I will leave a list of the products used in the description box, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. The last video, part 1, got such a good response, and it's amazing. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.